Welcome. Hanno, you've been around the block. You don't have any grey hair yet, so compliments on handling the pressure well. If you could go back in time and give yourself 1, 2, 3 pieces of advice you wish you had known before starting your entrepreneurial journey, what would it be?
Yes. I believe I was very naive coming into the entrepreneurship market. I came from a banking environment, and an opportunity presented itself in the property market. And during that time, it was a great time for property, not just in South Africa, but generally worldwide. Everything that I touched seemed to turn into gold, and we quickly molded ourselves into due diligence advisors for investor groups, and then advisory towards property developers on urban tax development incentives as well. So everything went fantastic, I would say, for at least the first 6 projects. And when the crash came, it all came crashing down into our own little world, where we had to evaluate what it was that went wrong, if it was our mistake or not. The lesson that I learned is the more something was out of your control, the longer you would normally take to get over it, because you then you feel you have the right to blame. And when you have that takes a significant longer time to actually progress from there on, instead of just learning from the mistake and applying that and avoiding the same situation going forward. So my lesson would be it's a huge risk whenever something happens that is outside of your control, that one has a reasonable blaming right, if you want, in order for you to progress. When you do blame, and if it is rightly so, it does not matter, it will still stall your progress. So whether it's your fault or not, you have to progress, but no, it will take longer if it's not your fault.
But I wanted to touch on that because, as entrepreneurs, often we are faced with failure or flirting with failure on a regular basis, and people say, no, it's part of the journey. How do you not take it personally? How did you feel about yourself in this? What must have been a really tough time?
It was a very tough time because my family was growing, and as my family was growing, my property portfolio did the same. And when that all came crashing down, I realized I had no mitigating or risk management in place. We realized that, like every industry or every portfolio, there is a cycle. There's an upturn, there's a downturn. Doesn't matter how good you are managing it, there is going to be a down cycle and an up cycle. So when you enter the market into an up cycle, you definitely have to develop a risk mitigation strategy to prepare for the down cycle as well. That we did not do, because everything we touched turned to gold, and we thought we were wonderful. Now, to answer your question directly is to say it was horrendous. We really we had to investigate what our options on liquidation and sequestration were, what our legal rights were. That was really not pleasant at all, and trying to segregate the emotion, knowing that it will not help us. At the same time, we are human, and it was a very depressing time, especially looking into the eyes of your small children and your newly married wife. They are looking at you differently, and you have been tasked to maintain the direction for your house and for your community in many ways. So it wasn't. I'll tell you, there were evenings where you really felt like giving up and just going back to corporate life. It would have been a much smoother ride if you did so, but the entrepreneurship bug was just too good, or just too incessant, and eventually we overcame it. We don't know how, but one thing we do know is we do know how to operate in a recession and in an upswing phase, and understand that there are cycles that we need to be prepared for.
But that is so powerful in the sense of having experienced the downs and the highs. Do you feel, notwithstanding the fact that you say, I don't know how we got out of it, if you had to give advice to other entrepreneurs watching that are going through tough times as recession and business idea not getting commercial traction, whatever the case may be, what advice would you tell them?
Well, what I'd like to say is know that it is a given that there will be up and down swing cycles. We don't always know how long or how short they will be. However, what advice I would like to give to them is with that awareness, develop a risk strategy during an upswing and a downswing phase that you would have. And if something happens that you did not plan for, which definitely will happen as well, I'd like to mention what helped me a lot was just the intensive research and development around your situation, because you are not the first person that has...
So don't put your head in the sand like an ostrich kind of approach?
It really does not help. You really feel like shutting the world out, and that's your knee-jerk reaction. You need to understand that your friend during this phase is research and understanding what your situation is, and that there's a lot of case studies and a lot of information of people that has gone through the same as yourself. You feel so alone, but the reality is there is so much information out there to help you get out of it from people who has been there before.
But the instinct is not to share. You know, you feel ashamed, you feel isolated.
Yes.
With whom do you share?
Right, yes. Of course, your target market clientele is not the same target market where you share your ups and downs with. So, of course, we go down to trusted parties, and what you will find is it's normally just only a small group that you can access. Sometimes there are avenues of professional, if you have the capabilities to go and see an independent professional advisor. These type of guys are bound to confidentiality, you know, attorneys and the likes. I recommend, if you have the capability, is to go and see them, where it is their business to keep whatever you share confidential, because you do have to understand that your clientele is not the same clientele where you do marketing, is not the same where you do an unpacking of how tough your day was.
Yeah. What other pieces of advice would you give to yourself as you were younger? For example, I know a lot of entrepreneurs say funding is our biggest challenge. Is this the case in your experience?
I would say funding is a challenge for an entrepreneur in Africa, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
In most developing territories, it is a challenge. And what I'd like to mention is just understand where you are in terms of investment readiness. The concept of investment readiness is something that is, I think, very underrated. What I did find, in some advice I'll give to myself, is to check yourself when you do an application for finance on how ready you are. Don't just assume that you are worthy or you are deserved, because the mandates of financiers are different. Some of them understand your business, and they also will not tell you that they do not know what they are doing when they don't. And surprise, surprise, not all financiers know how to finance SMEs in Africa. So you have a combination of either the financier not giving you authentic feedback in order for them to protect their interests. On the other side, you have not a sense of a good understanding of where you are in terms of investment readiness or finance readiness. If you understand those two concepts, you will save yourself a lot of time and effort and money probably, and just get that sobriety on knowing I am 7 out of 10 in terms of investment readiness for this type of financier. For that one, I don't even have to bother.
Okay. And that obviously saves you an enormous amount of time, effort, resources, and energy you put into the application and following up. And
That's correct. And many times I have found that from the negative feedback, or let's say in a finance application that was unsuccessful, some entrepreneurs have given up. And the information that was given to them wasn't even something that was an exact reflection of where their business are. It was simply a financier protecting their interest. So I've seen entrepreneurs give up where they should never have done so, with false information, if you want. And I think that is something that just points us back to investment readiness and the degree of how much it has been underrated over time. It really is a great benchmarking tool and a sober tool for understanding where you are.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for watching.